You know what? And we're going live.
I love you, Jim.
All right, I think we're live. Hello, welcome to the live filmmaker Q&A for Wild Boar. Hopefully you just watched that and enjoyed it. And we are here with Barney Berman, the writer, director, I think editor, and special effects man. Barney is an Oscar Award winner for his makeup effects, particularly for J.J. Abrams' Star Trek. But he also worked on Grimm, a TV show that was filmed here in beautiful Portland, Oregon. A lot of our viewers are probably familiar with that, and some of them maybe even were extras on that show. Next to him, we've got, or maybe not next to him, I don't know how your tiles are arranged, but we've got Michael Reed, who played Griffin in the movie. We've got Augie Duke, who was Lamb, Jim Neeb, who was Turtle, and Daniel Roebuck, or Danny, as what's your name again? I'm sorry.
I played two roles.
I played Wolf, and you were also one of the scary pig monsters.
Indeed.
The hunter.
Wait,
yes.
it just dawned on me. You guys all had animal names.
Oh, the butcher.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Dawned on
The
you?
butcher.
What do you mean?
Augie, you explain it to him later.
We should let Gwen talk. Gwen,
because Lamb is a perfectly common, normal human name.
Totally.
For humans.
Turtle too.
So, Barney Berman, what inspired you to make this film? Was this a story that you had in mind? Did you just want to branch out into making a full feature film and just instead of just working on a part of it?
I don't know.
Don't do that. You answer that question.
Was
Best
it a dare?
interview ever.
Did you lose a bet?
I kind of did lose a bet. A friend of mine and I were going to make a movie, a werewolf movie, and long story, somewhat shorter, we weren't able to get that one off the ground. And then he came up with this idea and said, what about a sort of a Planet of the Apes with pig people? And that just sort of set the ball in motion for me. And Dan's taking pictures. And it took a few years before I actually had a script I thought we could shoot. And even then, looking back at the script that I came up with, I think it's undoable. And I can't believe that I thought it was something that could be done. And even more so, I can't believe that we were actually able to do it.
It seems like a really ambitious project. And this was your first feature film that you directed?
It is.
Was it your first time directing, or have you made other films?
I shot a couple short films that never really finished. One that starred Jim Neeb as George W. Bush, and then during this quarantine, I actually finished it. Called Bush versus the Zombies, or WVZ for short.
WVZ.
Over the years, I've been kind of a cynist, at least in my own head, and not able to keep my mouth shut about what I thought, how I thought things should be filmed. And sometimes, working for other people, that was accepted and valued and appreciated, and sometimes it really wasn't. Probably too often it wasn't. So I thought, I should just make my own film. And once I started writing that Wild Boar script, I thought I have to make this movie. And then the universe just sort of started to align. The first person I did a makeup on Grimm was Mr. Danny Roebuck, oddly enough, as sort of a pig man. And I said, dude, I'm going to make this movie. Will you be in it? And ironically, it has pigmen in it. And he was totally gung-ho, all on board. And I thought, well, I got a lot of great enthusiastic responses from Danny and other people. And then I had this house that I had to kick a guy out of a victim, and he was a hoarder, and he left a bunch of stuff there. And I thought, oh my God, all this stuff can be our set. And we took all this stuff and made it our set dressing, and just all these things just lined up in order to support the making of the film. And at some point I realized I can't I can't stop doing it, and I can't make it happen any faster. I just have to sort of ride it out and be part of its own creation.
And how long from kind of like pre-production to wrapping filming did this whole process take?
I started writing a script in 2012. We shelved it for a couple of years. I started writing again in the beginning of 2015, maybe end of 2014. And then I think it was April in 2015, we went out and did a fundraiser shoot, and we raised just enough money to pay for the fundraiser shoot. Basically just broke even doing it. But we learned some stuff, and we got some makeups and masks and costumes together for it all, and we assembled a cast, most of which were just friends or friends of friends, except for our lead actress, Augie Duke, who was a friend of a friend, but it was the only part I auditioned people for, really, because I thought there's a lot on that character's shoulders, and she's got to be good. So I had a dozen or so women come in, and it was very clear when Augie came in that she was just sort of head and shoulders above the rest.
That's true. That's true.
I read Danny.
That's true. Danny said that's her. That's he after Augie left the audition, he's like, "Yep." There were two women that were good. It was Augie, and there was one other woman who was pretty good. And I said, "What are you guys thinking?" He's like, Danny and a couple other girls, just like, "It's Augie. That's it. You're crazy if you don't go for her." I said,
"There's a magical thing that happens that in a room when you really see it, Gwen, that you can't. I mean, everybody's good. All actors are good. You know what I mean? And they all have a place in the world, but they don't all have a place in the same movie." Mm-hmm. And Augie really was clearly the star of this movie, even before she made it. Yeah, I think.
I mean, for sure, like it's kind of her character's journey through, going from lamb to kind of kick-ass almost final girl.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely a strong thing. So did you feel that click? Like I talk about when we're designing things and we're having trouble with it, or we can't find quite the right thing, that when things start to come together, you kind of get that like weird internal like click, like that's it. Did you get that when you saw her?
I fell in love with Lamb, and I knew it was going to be hard. And I knew he was going to dunk me in dirt and cement. I mean, the hell? Can you tell them what I went through on that set?
Oh, I'm just shocked. Well, look, I told everybody, I said, this is going to be a really kind of a guerrilla filmmaking, and it's going to be not comfortable, and we won't have trailers. And I said, if you guys are up for it, I'm 100% into this and going to finish it, and I won't embarrass you, because I'll try not to. But it's not going to be easy.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure you guys are all prepared. And Augie didn't bat an eye. She's like, "Yep, I'm in. Let's do it." And we put everybody. Oh my God! I thought the worst thing was this. She went into this big vat of mud, and she went into this like moss-covered cement area in a reservoir, and she did all these terrible things and sat in a cage for days. And the thing that actually broke my heart was this: we made her run in like 114-degree heat by herself, followed by a drone. Made her run across the desert and up this hillside. And I think she did it 3 or 4 times. And I'm like, and she walked back, and I'm like, oh my God, we just stop. I thought she's gonna pass out. She's gonna die any minute. And then I had to not use it.
I think I probably did almost faint, but then I was looking at the pigs going, God.
Yeah, that was bad. And Dan was wearing, this pig costume in this intense heat, hiking a mile back into these canyons, and, on rocks, 20, 30-foot cliff rocks without railing or safety rope or anything. And I'm really pleased that none of you died.
Oh my God, right?
As are we. We are too. That was
I prefer it that way.
That's the sign of a solid production when nobody dies.
Yeah,
yes, exactly.
Now we've actually seen as film festival people, we've seen Augie in a couple other films.
Oh,
and so we from which we recognized her. So when we saw Wild Boar, we're like, that's that girl, Augie Duke. She was so great, and
Different
immediately
hairstyle.
stood out. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Now I'm like, which film? Now I'm like, which films? Which films?
I can't say because I'm pretty sure we haven't played them. But not because of your performance, certainly.
Awesome. That's so cool.
The I'm really fascinated by the set, or not the set, but the setting of the piece. That cool sort of hidden canyon. I grew up on films like 1973's Lost Horizon, which was a remake. I think 1937 was the Frank Capra.
May I? Wait a minute. May I?
Yeah.
Have you ever dreamed of a place far away from them all, where the air is free and soft and something, and children play in fields of green, and the sound?
The world is a beginning without a beginning.
Doesn't, yeah. The world is a circle without a beginning, and nobody knows where it
My
is.
father worked on that movie, and I went to set.
Oh, shoot.
And I got
See, now you say that, but
in the snow and stuff.
He got to grow up there at Bronson Canyon, going in that, and that whole idea that you could go into a place and there was a whole nother place inside. Mm-hmm. It's like everybody's greatest dream.
Oh yeah, I loved that element of the story. That there's a hidden canyon where a whole race or a whole city's worth of mutated pigmen live, and women, pigmen and women.
Yeah, we call it Van Nuys.
Not be swine.
What was the origination for that? Like, where did that come from? The idea that they had to be segmented like that.
Well, the idea was that there was a nuclear testing area out in the desert, uncharted Southwest, and people, it's kind of a quarantined area people can't get to. And I thought, well, I don't want to make big fences, and I don't want to have guards. I don't want to have, even warning signs. I really kept it kind of to a minimum. I thought there's just got to be some of a weird secret passage that people stumble into it. And it kind of worked for the simplification of getting the story moving along without making it too contrived. It just didn't need, I don't care if people have not found that area. It's like an Area 51. We just don't know quite where it exists or if it does. And if it does, it's mostly just in rumors. It wasn't, everybody's done the movie where they create the reason why there's this area. And I don't care the reason why there's this area. I just care that there is this area and our people are in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I like
it plays in nicely. It plays nicely with the idea that these geocachers are looking for this kind of like famed
ultimate
person that went missing, and then they find him, but they also find like a whole other hidden secret that they weren't really prepared for.
Yeah, and that's the treasure. That's the geocache find, is that world.
For sure.
But Barney makes a good point, in filmmaking, sometimes you make decisions based on what's the least expensive option, and it works, because if you would have had to fake walls and chain link fences and keep outside, that's what the production would have been about. And it really was a bunch of people who loved each other going to the middle of nowhere and trusting him, and Andre Welsh, our DP, who was such a good guy. And
such a good guy.
Oh,
yeah.
Sweetest.
That's the fun of it.
We have a couple of questions from people who are watching the chat, are typing questions, and like I want to get a couple of these in before they go away off my screen. Brian Campbell says, question for the filmmaker, Barney, were you tempted to set things up for a possible sequel? And did you ever find yourself sympathizing with the pigmen?
I slept with a couple of them. I don't know if I sympathized with them. They were awful. I don't think it isn't set up for a sequel. I didn't like, for those who've seen it, not necessarily everybody gets away, and maybe there's something that happens that we don't know, something else to explore there. I have sequel ideas in my head, um, and they're kind of they're bigger and more outlandish than what we did here. But I'm probably not going to jump into that unless someone came along with money that isn't mine and said, we want to invest in this. But I think there could be a really wonderful initial sequel, and I think it opens it up to a world of possibilities, similar to like Island of Dr. Moreau-esque world, where there's just these different kinds of humanoid creatures that coexist or in the underground, or get out. Yeah, so I don't know if that answers the question all that well, but there is potential sequel in it.
Okay.
And it would be
Someone, Guignol Fest asked Danny, who did you play in Final Destination? Julia and Dylan are friends with Amanda Detmer.
Yes, she's terrific. Amanda's terrific. I was Agent Ween. Remember, there were two guys, two FBI guys trying to figure out what was going on. So I was the more handsome of the two. No, actually, it was myself and Roger Genver Smith, a very excellent actor. So that was a real treat to be part of that movie and the beginning of the franchise. Speaking of franchises, but unfortunately, I think poor Devon Sawa had some trouble. So the storyline switched, so we didn't get to be in any of the sequels.
So heartbreaking.
They're there. Someone else asked a follow-up question. Did anyone else get splinters or other minor injuries on the set out in the desert?
I think everybody. Who got
minor injuries? No. I lost a leg. Jim, literally, we had to saw his leg off. Jim, show him. You don't have one leg.
Nick,
yeah,
I've got.
I'll show you.
Got just.
See,
just the one.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's the one.
Yeah, we had to saw it off with, by the way, a plastic spoon. It took 6 days, but we did it.
It was a sport.
But when the movie was just starting, I had a back thing.
Yeah,
and
it was first day of shooting on the desert, Michael hurt his back.
Yeah,
I hurt my back so bad that I was like, Barney, my character has a cane. I'm working on the cane. The cane is good. Don't worry. And you're like, nah, Mike. No. And so the first scene with my back, I was leaning up against the car.
The car is like on poles.
And then it went away. And luckily, my back healed up. I don't miraculously, and the pinched nerve, just like.
I think you had a little extra exercise.
That was before we were shipping, though. That wasn't even like that was.
Oh, I thought you would. I thought that you too, because you started, and then I thought that got your back to loosen up because working on the core.
What happened?
No, he's like.
It's been a while, hasn't it, Jim? Because this isn't.
This is fighting.
This is the reason why I'm single.
So the answer to the question is, although it was a dangerous thing, really we miraculously got through it, all looking out for each other, and nobody was really ever
nothing here. Our production designer / makeup department head got stung, I think, by 11 bees.
Yeah, 11 bees or so.
Yeah.
We called him Candyman, but he didn't like that.
Say it 2 more times.
By the way,
Candyman.
I didn't.
He's not looking in the mirror
because of a
That's the thing. He's looking at himself, though.
I was throwing something away. I just wanted to make sure everyone knows it was not a stunt or anything. It was literally in our house trailer before, and I reached down and grabbed something. I was like, "Oh!"
He's like an old man.
Oh no.
Literally, it was nothing. I wish I could say I took a bullet shot, man, and like, no.
Oh man. So I have a question about we had talked about you torturing Augie with all the scenes that she had to do. How did you do the mud scenes? Like, was that actual mud? Was it a tank?
We built like all those mud pots you see out that were out in the desert were all real mud pots except for one. And we built one that matched the look of those others. We took it out to the desert and we plunked it down in the midst of the others so it all blended in. And then we took that mud pot back over to the studio, and we put it on a platform with a trash can in the middle and filled that trash can up with methacellulose, like movie mud. And we shot down into that. So that's when Augie was actually inside the mud pot.
And may I add? Barney doesn't like to talk about this, but they made that pot. It looked so much like the real pots when we put it in the earth that we couldn't remember which one was ours. So the first time Augie went into the pot out there was not good because we picked wrong.
Burnt her to a
It wasn't
crisp
Augie, to be honest. It
for a
was
little while.
that was playing her part before we had to go back and audition Augie. But anyway, things worked out.
Well, they were actually hot mud pots, and one person slipped into the mud a little too close to one and burned his shin a little bit. Not anything bad, fortunately, but had he gotten even closer or stayed in there, it would have definitely been bad.
Yeah, it's very unpleasant.
Goodness. Oh, someone else asked, did any of you go geocaching as research beforehand?
No. No, I didn't. But look, I've killed a lot of. In River's Edge, I didn't go kill someone for research. You know what I mean? Like,
Spoiler.
we don't have to go shoot guns at people to be in Vietnam.
Didn't you?
But someone may have. Barney's a geocacher, aren't you?
I'm not a geocacher. I learned about it
just
around
looks
the
like
time
one.
when I was writing this, and I thought it was just a brilliant kind of vehicle to get people to go out and to a bad area and get in trouble.
The lure, as it were.
Yeah. I also liked the sort of philosophy of it. So,
Let's see. Someone else asked, how many days filming in the desert? And how did you cool off? Like, did you have any, were you just out there all day?
Cool
and
off.
then came back? Or was it just suffering in puddles of your own sweat?
There
we
was
had to be-
I had Michael lay on me. That's how I cooled off that one day.
Oh,
I remember that.
that was my favorite. That was my
It
favorite.
was such laughter.
My friend Gwen, you have to understand, we were in that desert all day. And I mean, some of us were wearing pig outfits all day.
Some
And
of
then
us
we'd go home.
who weren't even playing pigs.
Yeah, they just like to. We'd go home to where we were staying, and they had a mineral hot bath. So we would then go into the hot bath. I don't know what we were
It
thinking.
was amazing. It was amazing.
It really was. We would all go in there, and we would just kind of float around, and it was like human soup. All of us.
But deep. It was only 4 feet deep. And
Yeah, and it had a couple scorpions, but mostly they
trench.
left us alone. But that's what we would do. We just got used to it. Am I right?
And we
Augie, Michael, Jim?
shot 3 days in my studio, and then we went out to the desert for 9
2 weeks.
And then we had to go back to the studio, and we tore down the set we had shot in, and we built a new interior set. And then we shot a couple days, 2 or 3 days there, and then we went some months later back out to the desert again for 3 more days. And then we went back into the studio for some more days here, and then we went into doing pickup shots. And I think it ended up being about 23 days all told, but spread out about over a year and a half.
It was a year and a half. It wasn't 12 years.
Yeah, it seemed like 12 years.
It felt like 12 years.
Augie got a sex change right in the middle, and then she got bored with it, and she changed again. So it went on for so long. Yeah.
I didn't know that about Augie.
Yeah. Surprise.
You heard it here first. Eat that, TMZ. Danny, how heavy was the costume that you were wearing? Like, and how much of it was how much of you was covered in prosthetics, and how much was just covered by the costume?
Well, Barney is a very, as you can tell, he has an Oscar on his somewhere. He's a very smart guy. So the main pig makeup, the butcher makeup, and this is important. There it is. It's important to mention this. I think Barney, he told me about the movie, and he said, do you want to play one of the pig monsters? Now, I couldn't remember. And I said, I'll play a pig monster, but I got to have a real part too. Or
in my face somewhere as a cameo.
Yeah. but then, I was, when they made me wolf, that was good. But so, I'm actually like killed by myself, I think. I can't remember. But so
Welcome to Hollywood.
the actual silicone makeup probably weighed, the silicone, Barney, am I wrong? 15 pounds of silicone?
With the gloves and everything on, it might have been between 10, 15, something like that. But the costume itself was
was made of foam.
Yeah, the guy who built and played the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, Bill Bryan, he and his son built those bodysuits.
For us, yeah.
Like some layers of cloth and stuff over that. So it was actually kind of very aerated and relatively light.
Yeah, that was fine. It was just, it was 114 degrees.
Yeah.
And it was the day we were running back and forth. And I maybe got, I'm generally not a surly person, but at one point I know that I said, Barney, and you're talking through all the rubber. I was like, Barney, let's finish this soon. There's only so many of those you have in you until they've got to run you to a hospital, and there was no hospital.
I was pleasantly surprised. You and Douglas playing the other pig man.
Oh, Doug Tate, so great.
It was awesome.
You guys never complained. You're such champion.
And always coming up with ideas. Always coming up with little ideas on ways that he can bring the pigs to life. I think that was really amazing. I love watching Doug. Doug is so great.
Oh yeah, he's a real deal.
He like single-handedly drop the majority of the ensemble, or was that Danny? Was that you? You only took over in the end, but wasn't Doug pot-shotting like the?
I can do the voice. I can do the voice.
It's uncanny.
Like he's here.
I thought there was mostly just Doug and I in the makeup. And then when Barney had to fill other people in, they took other people and put them in similar makeups. And then, just by the way, when we shot, there's a scene where I'm chasing Augie in the mountain cave. Barney devised a brilliant slip-over mask, and then he made me up with that, or Nick did, on the set. So I didn't. Normally, you'd have to, our makeup took hours in a studio, but this was a mask that we could put on and glue down. And
there were some places that were too dangerous to get to in the costume, so we had to bring the costume and mask to that place and then make him up.
And then they left.
Yeah.
And then I had to come out. No, they didn't. Gwen, I'm sorry, we're just lying about so much. He only had one sex change, not two.
We're not even the right people. We didn't. I don't know.
No, we weren't even in the movie.
These are all masks. Come on, y'all.
Jim, that was very convincing.
Wait, Jessica, we missed her. She's amazing.
We do miss Jessica. She is amazing. And in the reshoot, since she was pregnant, 6 months? 6 months?
You couldn't tell because she's so tall.
And she's running around in the desert pregnant.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my God, she's going to miscarry any minute.
Such a dark joke.
Wow. Oh, that's the dark joke.
That's where that Monsterpalooza stunt came from.
That's right. We did a bit at Monsterpalooza where Jessica went into labor and Danny delivered a pig baby on stage.
Oh, yeah. I think we saw a YouTube video of that.
It was. What's Jim doing? But the thing is,
it was a fun memory.
Gwen,
fun memory.
Jessica sold it so well that people who were in there thought she was in jeopardy.
Oh, no.
And Barney will tell you, I was like, finish it up, because I've had a few babies. I think unlike
going to be called any minute.
Everybody here, Barney had one. They don't. It's women. If they think another woman's in jeopardy, they would have stormed the stage.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
mix of it. Yeah.
It's not funny anymore. Let's just pull the baby out. And we pull the pig baby out.
Pull the pig baby out.
Oh my God.
Inappropriate.
It's all Barney Burman's idea.
Yeah, lovely.
Barney, I still have your scissors. I never had a chance to cut. I still have your scissors.
God, for the umbilical cord thing to cut?
Yes.
Blood on them.
Oh.
So I have another question for you from the folks watching. Brian Campbell asked, did you record any real pigs when you were generating sound effects, or is that just complete fabrication?
You know, the sound designer is a guy that Daniel Roebuck turned me on to, named Bill Holmes.
Great
And
guy.
he was in Florida. And it took him almost 2 years to do the sound, and he just did such an amazing job from almost nothing, like from just scratch. But he had a friend named Lee who had a pig farm. And so he went out on the weekends. That guy cuts down trees. He has like a tree trimming service, and he cuts down trees all week. And then at night and the weekends, he'd go out to the pig farm and he would record Lee's pigs. One was a gigantic 400-pound pig named Bacon.
Oh,
And that's what gave all the pig sounds, was Bacon and these other pigs that were on this pig farm. And then tragically, Bacon died about a week after they finished. And so we have a little tribute at the end of the film that gives a little bit in fond memory of Bacon.
And Crafty taken care of as well.
And Crafty was not a problem after that.
Yeah.
Dark jokes. Why don't you hit him for?
what is happening right now?
The thing about Bacon, he worked in films himself. He had eaten Virgil Mason. Hold on, I screwed up the joke.
You were that close to nailing that. You were that close to landing that. You were that close, Danny. You were
At
that
4
close.
o'clock in the afternoon, your audience would be screaming with laughter. I apologize.
That's okay.
Mason
That's all right.
Virgil. I'm a virgin Mason.
Miss you guys.
I know.
I don't know. Gwen,
My
what
goodness.
else?
So I want to talk about the character names a little bit, because Wolf gets killed by a pig, which I think is hilarious, because the big bad wolf and the 3 little pigs, and that whole thing's flipped on its head. And then you have Turtle, who is kind of I don't know, like he holds back. It seems like all the characters are kind of named after one of the qualities of their personality. Was that something that you thought about, or was that something
What
that
was
happened
the quality
organically?
of Turtle? What was the quality of Turtle?
You're protective. You're kind of protected.
Oh, I'm in my own little shell. There he is. Okay, thank you. Well,
There's the turtle.
Yeah,
There
there
we
you go.
There he is.
Jim, what was your quality? Of Turtle?
Turtle's kind of along for the ride, and he's like supportive, but he's not leading anybody. He's not leading the charge, really.
It's not a leading
casting.
I think Turtle's subversive.
Right. And then Griffin has the grand idea of like trying to find the geocache thing, and
It's I don't know.
Lamb has the
Griffin is a.
oh, he's high all the time. Okay.
Well, people responded well to the idea that the humans have animal names and the animals have human titles, Butcher and Hunter and the band. But and I'm happy about that, because I didn't want to like call too much of attention to it, and I also wondered if was it too hokey. I don't know, but people seem to like it, so that pleased me.
I liked it. Yeah, I liked it.
Fits into the movie.
Just it's just a commentary of turning the tables, of taking people who normally slaughter pigs and putting them into this world where they are now the prey, and they're what's for dinner.
Yeah.
And if you could,
are any of you vegetarians?
well, if you can watch that and then come away still eating meat, then more power to you. But at least you're doing it with your eyes open. And I have had a couple people watch the movie and say, "I'm not eating meat anymore. Thank you. I'm now a vegetarian."
Oh, that's good. See,
Yeah.
that is
Nice.
good. I like that.
Yeah. Save some animals.
I'll never take a mud bath.
We just like you to take a regular bath, Jim.
You keep wishing.
Gwen, of all of your followers, just fit like.
No, I'm trying to. They're posting so fast, like not so fast, but they're posting a bunch of stuff, and I'm trying to figure out, because they're chatting with each other.
They're posting
So I'm trying to figure out
bet they
what's
are.
chat and what's actually a question.
Yeah.
And
Well, let's look at what they're chatting about. It might be more interesting than this.
Yeah, they're more
Really,
excited
I
about
don't
each
know.
other than us.
interview them.
Not really. I'm curious to know how much was the script entirely, the dialogue in the script, was that entirely scripted, or was some of that done kind of improv at all?
I like to write dialogue quite a lot, and I get really specific with the dialogue. But then once we're shooting, I say, guys, don't worry about it. You know, I want, and everybody was great about this. I want you to learn your lines and then forget them. And that way, if you knew what they were at one point, you can come back to them. And I like the natural flow of conversation that you can't always write, and you can try as much as you can, but even people like Mamet and the Coen brothers, they find like a kind of a rhythm to their conversations that is almost natural, but a little bit not. So I like people like Danny comes in just with like so much experience, and Jim, who teaches improv. And I think everybody just sort of rose to this level of comfort with each other, and they were able to have discussions and make it real. And that's what I value more than what the printed word was.
I really love that outside scene that we did where we first get introduced. It was the one where Amelie was sitting on my lap. We were outside at the house, and it was actually after a lot of the shooting had been done, and then we were just sitting out there. That felt really loose. Danny was in there, and it just felt just the exchanges felt very loose and natural when we shot that. That was a really nice day of shooting for me. I really enjoyed that day in particular.
There's when you respect your other actors, as I respect, Michael and Augie and Jim and Jessica, you know everybody's going to be pulling their weight in anything you pull out. So in any conversation, so that's good. But the best directors, and I've worked with a lot of directors, is who say make it yours. Unless you're writing jokes, and jokes have to be jokes, but it's better to do.
I'm the best director that you've worked with. That's what I heard what I got out of that conversation was. Anyway. And one thing is, like, Jessica was speaking of improvisation. Jessica was concerned about it because she doesn't consider herself an improvisational actress, but she was so good when she had just like those absolutely raw, real moments, especially with Augie. A lot of the stuff where she attacks Jessica with a rock and hits her in the head and stuff. It was loosely scripted, but wow, very slick.
It's an animal. Sorry.
Is that a puppy?
Our puppy.
Sure.
When did you buy a wig?
Oh.
That just looks like a rug, Barney.
Oh,
is there a cat back there too?
It's full of animals in there.
It's a barn. Nice. The barnyard.
I kept wishing a pig would run by at that exact moment.
Very disappointed.
I'll be over there in 15 minutes, Barney.
Yeah. Ever since you talked about bacon, the pig won't talk to you. So Gwen, please save us. Save us from ourselves.
So getting back to the scene on the rooftop, like that was a really beautifully shot scene. Tonight, as we were watching, I was like, wow, this is so weird. It's like a food, like I feel like I'm watching an advertisement for like a wine tasting festival, because you've got these gorgeous shots of all the food and the wine being poured, and like, I wish I was there right now. Like, where was that rooftop setting?
That was a friend of mine's house. He let us use his house in his
in LA.
Yeah,
it was in
on
Sonoma.
the hillside in Hollywood. And that's the whole other thing, is the dichotomy between the sort of beauty and ease and glamour of that versus the world that they ended up going into.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite days shooting. Was I don't know, there was just a vibe about that. Didn't we shoot the interior, the scene around the table, and the map that day as well?
Yes.
Yeah. There was just something I really enjoyed. I don't know why, maybe not anyone else, but I
all of you guys, the five of you, were just a unit together. Sorry, Augie.
Where did that take place? Oh, sorry.
What is she laughing for?
No, you.
There's three times. Third time's a charm.
And
I forgot what I said.
Go.
Okay. Moving on.
Anyway, so it was a great ensemble. It was the most together ensemble of all film.
Oh, I know what I was going to ask is at what point in the shooting was that scene? Was that like after you guys had done everything else, or?
Yeah, not everything else, but it was definitely in the latter half. So we had done a lot of the interior stuff of the pigs and the exterior stuff on the desert. And then I think we did those 3 days in the desert, and then came back and shot at that house. Well, actually, you know what it was? It was we were going to shoot out in the in a little pond in Malibu, and
Yeah.
we got shut down. The Rangers came and said, "Nope, not shooting here. Get out."
That was a long hike, and then it was going to rain.
And when we say a pond in Malibu, we mean at the place where his father shot Lost Horizon at the former Fox movie ranch. And we went out there, and now this may surprise you, but they're on to, you come out there wearing a Planet of the Apes costume or something. They're like, are you thinking of filming here? No. So
they said they shot down 3 other productions, people trying to sneak.
I forgot about that too.
We should have been smarter. We should have said, you know what we'll do? We understand this problem. We'll film you shutting them down. Yeah, we're going to start filming. We're just get out there. Get out there. We finally ended up shooting that scene in the middle of nowhere, right out in
up near Lake Arrowhead.
Yeah, toward Lake Arrowhead. A friend of mine said, "Oh, you need," because I said we need a place that's undisturbed and that place where Augie jumps into the water in the beginning of the movie, that water was like
it was 31
Titanic water. It was so cold.
You guys bet me to jump in it. That's how you guys got me to get in there. You're like, I dare you. We'll give you money. I was like, you're gonna give me money? Okay, cool.
You were talking about the match cut though. It matches, but it goes underwater over. What's her name?
Helena's house.
Yeah.
And it goes right under
that pool.
Well, that's part of the synchronicity of the whole thing. I asked this friend of mine if she'd be stunt coordinator for it, and then in discussions, I said I need something that looks like a natural body of water, but is controlled. And she says, "Have you seen my pool?" And she has this like natural rock formation around her pool. It's like so we built a set that we could submerge into the pool and to sort of fill out the bottom of it. And we shot a lot of the underwater stuff there.
That must have been a difficult shoot.
Yeah, Augie, are you a swimmer? Like, are you a naturally strong swimmer?
I'm a professional swimmer, so.
Right. Hold her breath for up to 7 seconds.
That was it? Really?
Wow, Michael.
I love everybody who's like, this is a problem. You get older and everybody's so proud of their kids. And they're like, my son is he's an award-winning swimmer. And I always say, if you don't drown, you're the award-winning swimmer. Like the whole point of swimming is to not die. Is your son alive? Yes. Then like all of us, we're all great swimmers. So I don't really give a shit about your stupid son and his swimming. I just want to throw
Would you like another margarita, Danny?
And another thing, let me tell you something about these goddamn kids.
Really
Look, when I was a kid, I'm sorry, Augie, talk words.
It's like a mental institution of a cast. We're like,
I had the best time with this cast and crew. I really did. We were shooting in the blazing hot desert, the stinky Salton Sea, but man, we had such a good time shooting. I mean,
you remember the storm the first night we got down there?
First time we get down there was literally a big.
Oh yeah, huge. That's right. We all got there, and it was like, "Don't go outside, we'll die."
It's this lightning storm.
And then we took our, it was a long morning to get everybody ready and a lot of driving. And we finally get out to where we were going to go to shoot. We get to this part where we had to get to a dirt road. We found out the road had been washed away.
Washed out.
So then we had to climb into
we couldn't take,
four-wheel it out to where we wanted to shoot.
Almost a Terry Gilliam situation with our film there, like several times. Crazy.
Almost. But that pussy couldn't finish it.
We had one Winnebago where we would all wait. That the idea was when we were out in the middle of where it was hottest, we'd have the Winnebago, but they couldn't take the Winnebago the other 8 miles once the road washed out. Yeah. So there's nowhere to go to the bathroom. Nowhere to go to the bathroom. There was nowhere to relieve yourself. It was
no shade. We did have kind of a tent set up, didn't
A
we?
little tent so you could sit under.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And the crew, man.
God
The
bless.
crews, hiking stuff, all the makeup stuff. I was shocked that we
Fortunately,
got.
there was a Starbucks about 10 miles away we could go to.
Was there?
Yeah,
Felt
10
like it.
miles. Or out there was 10 miles or 4.5 hours to get there.
So true.
The Starbucks is yonder. I'm sorry. Are there questions? I feel like these poor
Well,
people.
Jim talked about his favorite day of shooting. What were the rest of you? What was your favorite day of shooting?
The last one.
Payday.
Okay.
Are we done shooting?
Yeah, Jim.
Is the film finished?
No, Jim. No. You got one more day, Jim.
Okay, I'm gonna hit the sack.
Doggy, what was your favorite day?
I loved all the days, but I had a good time with all the actors. But when Doug and I got to put the makeup on and we were doing that scene as two dumb pig people, I mean, that was just. And then I think that same day I placed my tit in Augie's mouth, and
That was my favorite scene.
how could it not be?
Said no one ever. You know that's gonna be like a GIF, like a meme thing, where it's gonna be like,
It's classic.
Yeah, when you get your Oscar, they'll be like, roll the film, and they'll put that film up by mistake. and then like Brad Pitt will come out and take your Oscar. So go, give me that.
oh God,
Augie, what was your favorite day?
definitely that one. No, my favorite day? Oh, I don't have a favorite day. I think honestly, I had a blast the whole time.
I honestly
They
did too.
all
Yeah.
were just kind of meshed together in one big day / 23, 4 days. I don't know how many days, but I really don't have a favorite day. I loved every day. I really did. Yeah, it was
Fine.
new. Every day was a new day.
I think our you were speaking, Jim, about the line total domination. You know, that whole thing. I take a hit, and we're out on the balcony, and it's getting twilight. That just was a chill, relaxed
Yeah.
time there, working with fine actors and good. We've become friends already, so that was a really pleasant day. I mean, and we were at somebody's nice house, and
We were lounging on the bed. I just remember walking in and Danny's like asleep on the bed or something. I don't know. Somebody was asleep on the bed that before in between shots.
yeah.
I like Salton
That's
Sea
cool.
the best. I prefer when we were out in the middle of nowhere in that trailer park.
I agree with you.
That was my favorite.
That first day, I will never forget that first day of the storms and that first selfie that we took when we were staying there. I wish, Danny, you had been there for that one. Honestly, you
I
arrived a
must
little
have got
later.
in, but I wasn't. I was on the other side of because I remember that storm right after we literally got into the room, and then
Yeah.
all hell hit. You guys, the people watching, if you're still watching, if you haven't gone to bed, everybody talks about unplugging and this and that and whatever, and this really was unplugging. There was no making phone calls in the middle of where we were, and the Salton Sea. People make a great deal of jokes about it. Let me say this here: they were the nicest people. They were the nicest, because in that area it's so weird. There's like, we're shooting in a house and the girls are, and right next door, I'm not making this up, is this family living in a house that's completely normal.
Yeah.
And
Almost a completely deserted neighborhood, except for like 4 or 5 houses where people still live.
and live like good people, right? You know what I mean?
hold on
So
on.
like, and if you would knock on the door and say, could I please use the restroom? They'd be like, sure, come on in. Like,
That grocery shopping we did that time, that was such a neat. Do you remember the grocery store we went to when we were near the bee house?
Yeah.
And then we went in and just went shopping. That was it. And then cooking dinner. Barney, thanks for that experience.
Yeah.
That was really a good memory now that I'm thinking about it.
That was a lot better than the money we should have gotten. But I was happy. That's a joke. It's a joke. It really is a joke.
The Salton Sea area used to be it was like a resort area, right?
Yeah,
I thought
when
we
they-
told him not to say anything. I thought we said don't say anything about the money. Oh, I'm not muted, am I? Oh crap.
Oh, so your video's out. Oh, there you go.
Jim, it's so crazy.
What was
Um,
that? Resort
what-
area, and then the water dried up?
Yeah,
Yeah, people used
then-
to swim in that.
The
Yeah,
pH
and then the-
balance of the water got so whacked that all the fish started dying, and then things just tumbled from there.
Yeah, the lake died, and then that was that. But when you drive around, there's like a motel, like it's like the casino is, like the
So-
post-apocalyptic casino. It's extraordinary.
Yeah.
Great
It's
place.
really beautiful, weirdly enough. It's beautiful down there and
And
in a very
and how about-
desolate way.
how about this memory, guys? The day that we went to shoot in the place where we go into the hole, we get there and there's like somebody else shooting.
Oh yes.
Or did you remember that? And I had to go. I was like, what if you guys shot now? And then we shot in a half hour. And then this guy drives up and people are like, who's this guy? He's like, I own it.
Oh my god.
And then it was like,
Yeah, the guy who
Yeah.
owned the land the mud pots were on came out there and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna fence this all up next week.
oh,
So
yeah,
we-
because of you all.
no, we just got in there just under the wire.
Oh my God, I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Easy.
But he was
Yeah,
so
I-
nice about it.
I went up, I dropped the matlock, when the fella comes up, he's about 75 years old.
Oh, you
I
know
run
your
out
audience.
there and I'm like, sir, have you ever seen Matlock? Yes, I love Matlock.
Are you Matlock?
Yeah. Are you Andy Griffith? You look old. And I was like, I'm not Andy Griffith, but I'm Cliff. I like the black guy better. All right, well, I'm the guy. Anyway, so we got to shoot there and did not get shot or kicked out by the fella.
Look.
I think one of the things, because we talked a little bit about the party sequence. I think one of the things that everybody probably watching it is one of these thoughts with all of this isolation is, man, I wish I was there right now. Like, could I just be in a nice place with friends, smoking and drinking,
Being chased by pig people.
but later
Yeah.
if there's time, yeah. If everybody's feeling crazy after the first few glasses. Well, what are you guys doing now? Like, we're all in our living rooms. I know we've got a thing here. Our TV's behind that. This is our living room.
Yeah.
What have you all been up to during this whole weird, isolated time?
I teach acting. So I was teaching for 3 hours tonight. I taught for 5 hours last night via Zoom. Feeling very fortunate that I don't know. I mean, you all worked with me. Do I even have a right to be teaching acting?
Yes.
Hard to know, but that's been nice. And Danny and I think are going to be working on something once we're able to work on it.
You taking
we all
classes with Jim, Danny?
We all are.
Shooting, aren't we all
Yeah.
shooting something?
I think we all are. Just
Yeah.
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 So we get to work again.
But if they watch this thing, they'll be like, don't put them on the same day.
Thinking,
I'll put them on the same
I
day.
shouldn't have said
Are you
this.
all going to be in something I don't know about?
Well, I don't know about it either. I just it's the one, remember her and her husband were talking about it a while ago?
Sarah Nicklin, yeah.
Psycho a go-go.
His
Yeah.
his ex-wife.
His ex-wife, I
Is-
forgot. It's a very odd world. We'll get Barney, be careful what you wish for. You'll probably be building a body. So do you know that for people watching, hold on, I directed my first movie. It was called Getting Grace.
Yay.
And Barney, it's about a teenage girl who's sick, very sick, and she goes into a funeral home to find out what's going to happen after she dies. And she ends up teaching the funeral director how to celebrate his life. And Barney so graciously came to our aid because we needed a dead body for a funeral sequence. And I was going to use my dad, but then I knew he'd fall asleep. So, and ruin everything. So Barney built a body for us, but he
It's my
built a
father-in-law.
body of his father-in-law. And Tammy said the other day, did you see that picture of your lady? And she goes, she's standing with Mr. Berge. That's because he used his dad.
That's right.
Gosh, that's amazing.
So we're all like, we all keep working together. I was supposed to be in Budapest, Hungary on a top secret and extraordinarily fun project, but that
Tell us all about it.
Yeah. But if people go, let me push and say, you want to know what's going on with me? Go to a channelofpeace.org. I started a not-for-profit filmmaking company. We're going to make family movies with an element of faith, not over the head. If people see Getting Grace, and it's available on Hulu.
Phenomenal film.
Oh, thank you. If you see it, it's on Hulu or Amazon Prime. It'll be like that. Just a nice, good family movie. But we had another movie we're going to make after the Budapest thing, and we can't, obviously, because of COVID. So we're making a very small movie in its place. That's what we're going to do next. Called Lucky Louie.
Oh, I love that.
Yay. And I've been binge watching NCIS, and who pops up on my screen? But Danny pops up on my screen in an episode. And I'm like, and I text you, I go, guess who just showed up on my screen? He goes, that's very nice.
What episode is that?
NCIS.
The one with Danny on it.
Season 3 or something like that.
We're stuck in
Docs.
it's the one with all the boxes on the port. It's called Boxed In at the port. If you watch the show, by the way, very nice people, all of them.
You were really great on
He's
that,
been
Danny.
binging it.
Yeah,
you were awesome in that. It felt like you were a part of the permanent cast. You just so blended in so well.
Oh, that's right. I try to do that, but and then I come back the next week, and I'm like, "Where's my trailer?" And they go, "Get out of here!"
You were killed off.
Barney, when are we gonna see WVSZ?
Yeah, I just finished. So 12 years ago, Jim and I shot something called WVZ, Bush versus the Zombies, and it just was a silly little thing. I turned into a 2-part short film, and I found it during this quarantine and thought, I could never finish that. So I put that together and have it completed, and I'm looking for some place to show it. There you go.
We enjoy it very much. I didn't realize that was Jim.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And
Oh my God, look at that.
Dick Cheney, and then my other friend as me.
Wow.
That's funny.
For a second, I actually had to do a little bit of a take on that. To when we I don't know if we're supposed to tell anybody, but we saw it.
We got to see it.
And there is Barney's boy.
Yeah.
Right there.
Who's now 40.
He turned 21, and he was.
Yeah, I mean, that makeup is you guys. But it's unbelievable to see him in the makeup. But then when Jim does the character, it's perfection.
Yeah,
I appreciate
it. We were like, did he get George Bush to be in this movie?
For a brief second, we thought maybe he knows George W. Bush. I don't know.
I like that. Can you imagine? He's like, well, I'm not doing anything. Like.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was gonna paint, but I figured I'll just make a movie. I mean, I love zombies. Awesome.
Oh, good.
Augie, Michael, you just want to plug anything?
Yeah.
Michael would like to plug Augie.
And good night. Thanks, everybody. Have a nice evening. Thank you so much. We hope all the families enjoyed this.
Yeah, and well, we just had a long producing thing going on too, a film 645 that we both produced and starred in. Just wrapped, not right before COVID hit. We wrapped, and so we're so lucky. And it was a 3-year process of from Craig Singer, the director and producer, courting Augie, and then me somehow sliding in there as the lead after that, and we just made it happen, and it finally and it's done, and we're really excited about it.
Took a while to get greenlit, but then it finally did.
Yeah.
Congratulations!
Hey,
it's like a Groundhog's Day horror film, but not a comedy, and like you would there's a few movies like Happy Death Day out there, and those kind of things. It's not a happy movie, but
Not funny.
Day of horror is basically what it is.
I look forward to seeing it.
If only we knew somebody who had a horror film festival.
I know.
Oh,
There's somebody. There's so many though.
There's got to be some crazy people
You know,
somewhere.
Portland's beautiful.
Yeah,
It
Portland
is, yeah.
Horror Film Festival. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I don't know if you've heard of it.
It was great working with her, though. I mean,
Well, but was it though?
you played girlfriend, boyfriend. You know, in the movie, and it was really. It was
May have wanted to murder him sometimes, but I still.
Welcome
No
to
spoilers.
my world.
Gwen.
yes, yes.
She gets
Married already.
I get it.
We've
Yeah.
actually we've been pretty blessed because we work from home so much anyway.
Yeah.
People are like, how can you stand each other being cooped up in the house all day? Like that's
It's
not
normal.
much different for us.
Yeah.
Not much different.
Yeah.
Did anybody? We should probably wrap
We
it
should
up
probably
pretty
wrap
soon.
up.
But did anybody ask about the animation?
No,
yet?
I was gonna
Oh.
get to that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
yes.
I
ask.
love animation. Yeah.
At the beginning of the film, the little animated sequence. Where did that come from? And
Who did that?
Yeah, who did that? And whose idea was that?
Well, it was a combination of things. I can't remember exactly what happened, but my wife and I were watching something. It was animated, and I made a joke about, you know, doing the beginning of the film and animated. And she's like, "Oh my God, you should do that!" And it really started my mind going. And thought, how would that work? And then with the story I wanted to tell, I couldn't afford to have, you know, a big actual bunker and an actual explosion and all these things. And I thought, well, if I did it stylized, and I stylized in sort of bookends, that could really be interesting and fun and something kind of new. And, you know, I wanted to make something that was unique and not standard. And I loved that old kind of animation. And I knew that was not going to play as reality. So it's separated the time and the style and the place and everything, and still kind of ideally blended into where we ultimately end up. Is that?
I really like the way it sort of contextualized the beginning of the film. You know, to sort of
Yeah.
it kind of lifts you because it's a funny little moment, sort of.
And it's pulling our character Lamb back into that world.
Mhm.
And
And Michael did a great deal of the animating, didn't you?
Yeah.
Am I
No,
wrong?
No. I
Good
came in
claymation.
on one day and just assisted, and it was
it was built and animated by these amazing women, Hans Mulligan and Kelsey Hunter, who had just moved out from Baltimore, just graduated art school, studying animation. And I said, "Hey, you want to do a little animated thing? I can't pay you much, but..." And they took it on enthusiastically, and they built these sets in my studio and did an amazing job, I
the
thought.
dam set was so amazing. It was like 3
Yeah.
feet wide. I mean, it's a pretty big.
Oh yeah, the sets were huge actually. And they built the little front of the butcher's house that you see before Augie goes into the pit, and she looks over and she sees that house across the thing. It was a little bit of a they built a facade of. So I didn't have that actual house the way I wanted it. So they built it, and then we put it in the composited scene from the desert.
That's
Didn't
fun.
know that.
Yeah. So if you look, if you were to freeze frame and you look on it, you look in the curtains, and it's like tiny little ragtag shirts and people hanging in the window. The windows are about this big.
Nice
I
miniatures.
love that beginning.
But they built it in like an hour and a half. It was crazy. It was so good.
Wow.
That A-bomb turned out really nice too. I was really happy.
Love the way they did that. Love the way they did that. And I love the way the sound, the way Bill put the sound in there. So you see the thing go, the flash, you see the thing go up, and you're oh,
Yeah.
kind of rumbling
So
forward.
cool. It's so cool.
It was really kind of poignant. Like I felt bad for the pigs.
Oh, for sure.
And they had these little expressions, and like there's something really wonderful about the way they made all the clothing and animated everything. It made it pretty creepy just right from the beginning when
Yeah.
it starts rolling. Like you know that this is not a fun, cute little animated thing. That like you know what you're getting into already. So they did a really great job with that.
Thanks.
Although I did like the dichotomy there, like sort of the kind of the lightness of the animation, but then you know, things get serious pretty fast in the film. But it does give you just that little bit of sympathy for the pigs, which I think is a great way to start the film.
Well, especially with the music that comes in the beginning, it's kind of old, almost like you know, old Leave It to Beaver-esque, you know, television, and it's all just to sort of create an era in which it was starting.
Cool. I love hearing about that.
Well, geez, we've been chatting for about an hour now, so we should probably let you guys go to bed or do whatever you're gonna do. We have some filming to do tonight.
What are you talking about?
Nice.
No rest for the wicked.
Jumping off your work over here.
I just have this stuff near me.
Danny, tell me about your role in Lost before we go.
Another time.
Hey, can we say thank you to everybody who stuck with us, and thank you to everybody who supported the Portland Horror Film Festival.
Yes.
God bless you all for your support in this weird time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for letting this little kernel of what we love play there. That was very sweet.
Thanks for taking
Couldn't
me
be
to
happier.
this.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Right back at you. I think you know, this is such a strange and difficult time. We didn't know when we were starting on this thing if any filmmakers would want to take part in it. You know, we really just didn't know how it was going to be able to move forward, and we kind of just decided, well, we gotta do something, and we'll see what people say.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, the support's been wonderful. And yeah, thanks
Well,
so much for letting us play the film. Thanks so much for being here for the Q&A and chatting with us for an hour. It really means a lot to us and our audience.
Well, thank you very much. Bye, everybody. Have a very good night.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good night.
Thank you
Thanks for
all. Be safe, Portland.
Meet you guys.
And be
Thank
weird.
you.
And be
I
weird.
hope to get you up here in person someday.
Absolutely.
Count on it.
Bye, guys.
Bye, y'all.
Good night.
All right.
Go ahead and end that broadcast.
Nice to see you guys.
Good night, everyone. Oh, tomorrow, Zombire double feature. Make sure if you don't already have your tickets, they're on sale through the Hollywood Theater website. We are showing Sunset on the River Styx, which is a surreal vampire film, very modern, and Witness Infection, which is a hilarious zombie comedy. I keep calling it a zom-com because it's kind of a zombie romantic comedy, but you guys are gonna love it. We'll have the filmmakers on for Q&As after each thing plays. And did Brian, you have anything else?
No, I'm just
All
saying good night to everybody.
Good night.
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for being here.